Okay, so how should we see budget 2026? We are going to go into what we call the budget face-off now. Joining me now is Dr. Manu Singhvi, a four-time MP of the Congress, eminent jurist, Chair, Parliamentary Standing Committee on Law and Commerce. Also joining me is Professor Dr. Gaurav Vallabh. He is part of the Economic Advisory Council, economist, politician with the Bharatiya Janata Party. Also with us is Surjit Bhalla, someone who's tracked budgets probably longer than anyone else, former executive director at the IMF. Good to have all of you on the show. I'm going to ask you, because I want you to be crisp, each of you. You give me first, Gaurav Vallabh, ruling party, what do you think is the biggest strength of budget 2026 and the biggest weakness?
See, the biggest strength, I can say, the budget, the entire premise lies on 3 M's. Focused approach to MSME, focused approach to manufacturing, and maintenance of the reform express which is happening in the country. I will give you 10 seconds for each of the 3 points. When I say MSME, starting with the equity support, with the liquidity support, and there was always one argument that majority of the benefits of the MSME sector were taken away by the small and medium. Micro were not getting most of the things. So this time there is a provision of corporate mitras who will ensure that the benefit of the MSME schemes moves to the micro enterprises also. Coming to the second M, that is manufacturing, starting with the sunrise sectors like Semiconductor Mission 2.0, Biopharma Shakti, to the conservative manufacturing, like there is a high-tech tool room for the CPSCs, the Central Public Sector Enterprises, container manufacturing, which is one of the most required thing in the export-import. The issues of the textile industries are addressed in this budget. 3 new chemical parks were announced, and from the social sector side, from the education to the orange economy, there are a lot of things in the manufacturing sector. The third point, which is the continuation of the Momentum Express or continuation of the Reform Express. Earlier Reform Express was on broad gauge. Now there is a high-speed rail is there on the tracks of high-speed rail network. Reform Express is moving. Starting with the infrastructure, you can see, Rajdeep, 6 lakh crore rupees approximated is allocated to the infrastructure sector. Defense sector got a very high boost. Third point, the Atmanirbharta in the defense sector. Already we had a defense production of 1.5 lakh crore in FY25, domestic defense production by our MSMEs. The export of the defense equipments are ever increasing in the last 2-3 years, and this is one of the collateral benefit of the Operation Sindhu. So okay. I gave you the
You've given me
sides.
3 M's,
you asked me,
MSMEs,
plus
manufacturing,
yeah,
and the Reform Express, which you're saying maintaining
and
the
maintenance of momentum.
Okay, I've got your point. Let Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi give me the other perspective. Why do you think that this budget of 2026 is very tepid and insipid? Those are the words that are being used by many opposition leaders, and maybe give me your reasons for that. You're on mute, sir. You're on mute.
Absolutely correct, Rajdeep, and possibly an understatement as far as those adjectives are concerned. What I liked are 2 phrases about the budget. One is that it's like an ATM. The screen lights up, but the cash doesn't come out. And she spoke in a 9th budget speech for hours, but I think the middle class heard basically silence. So let me give you very quickly the bullets you need. First, it just doesn't add up. You know, there's a very special trick about budgets. You keep on talking nice things about the future, but they have to gel with the past. So what we will get in the future over the next year, well, we can only hope. But it directly contradicts the past. Take, for example, capital expenditure. It is actually reduced as a percentage of GDP from 3.2 to 3.1%. And in absolute terms, it is reduced by almost 1,44,000 crores. It doesn't add up. Second, revenue expenditure has been cut drastically in what I thought were the highest public interest sectors for the country. Rural development, 53,000 crore rupees cut. Urban development, 39,000 crore rupees cut, and so on. Agriculture, 6,985. I'm not going to bore you with figures, but that's the trend. Third, my friend just spoke, although we are not in a debate, we are all speaking individually, I was told, but he spoke about manufacturing. You know the irony, Atmanirbhar has become a supreme irony, a myth. Manufacturing is stuck at 12.8, less than 13% for more than a decade. The sector which should be growing most, we are actually sustained by our services sector. So what you're talking about is the future, rosy, nice projections, but this is the disconnect with the past. How can you suddenly jack up manufacturing from a consistent structural, stuck in the rut of 12.8 to this rosy picture of the future? It doesn't add up. Then, fourthly, tell me which of the major concerns your own economic survey raised are addressed by this budget. Let's take gross fixed capital formation. It's very low from 25, 28 to 30%. What is there specific about this when an actual capital expenditure is cut drastically? Jal Jeevan Mission, which is your own mission, is cut from 67,000 crores to 17,000 crores in the revised estimates. Now, what you've done is you again jacked it up for the next year. But if your immediate past year performance is this huge cut, it is just, very highly questionable.
So you're saying there's a huge gap between the government's claims and the reality on the ground, because you had Gaurav Vallabh giving a list of areas like these rail corridors, specific schemes that have been announced by this government. For example, tax holiday till 2047 for foreign companies setting up data centers in India.
So,
They've given specifics, Dr. Singhvi.
Rajdeep, in the long run, as John Keynes said, we're all dead. I'm very happy if this happens in 47, but I'm comparing it with the immediate past year. MSCs was mentioned, MSMEs. Corporate Mitras is an administrative ease of business effort. What is the solid thing to reduce the lakhs of MSMEs which have shut down? Tell me a single. Corporate Mitras will help them to file forms.
I gave you and
urban and
Mr.
rural
Vallabh
unemployment
equal time. I want to give the same time to Dr. Surjit Bhalla. Is there a middle ground between the two extreme views that I heard just now, Dr. Bhalla, in this budget? When I look at some of the early criticism, it is that the budget didn't do enough. It could have been a breakthrough budget. It isn't. The other view is it has provided a strong element of stability and the potential for future growth.
Okay, I don't know whether I'll fall in between the two views, but let me also give you my 3 points on the budget. First point, that in terms of social indicators, and by that I mean poverty reduction, women's empowerment, notification of labor codes, etc., the government has done spectacularly well. These things all happen before the budget, and the government has to be credited with what they have done in these areas. Then, in terms of economic policies, the income tax cut and the GST tax reduction, two policies that I was very much in favor of, have also been announced and are in place. So those are two background to the budget announcement today. The third point I want to make, what I was looking for from the budget is what it does to private investment. That is what ails the Indian economy. And there is not much I see in the budget to accelerate private investment. Our major problem is net FDI is now negative. That means Indian investors, net, are investing more abroad than they are in India. That is to say, Indian capital expenditure, etc., by the private sector. The public sector, that is going as normal, which you also mentioned, and that is good. But what ails the Indian economy is that there is lack of private investment.
But that's, with Dr. Bhalla, the government on its part claims we've given a number of incentives over the last 5 years. What are we to do if the private sector doesn't do any lifting?
Yeah, that's a very good point you're bringing up. What is the private? Look, the private sector is not an agent of the government that it has to do what the government wishes. The private sector around the world reacts to incentives. And what
So
this
why is the
means
private sector
that
not
the government
responding?
is
Is there,
not
what is the
providing
explanation?
incentive. Sorry?
What is the explanation for the private sector not responding positively?
Okay. One explanation for the private sector not responding positively, and this was the Supreme Court action just about a week or 2 weeks ago on taxation and Tiger Global taxation, etc., and bringing this, the High Court had said it was all okay, and the Supreme Court then ruled. Now, I'm not one of those that believes that the Supreme Court is such an independent agency that it can act against the interests of the government, against the interests of the Indian citizens. So therefore, that is why, if this is another version of tax terrorism.
You're saying
That
there's
is
a
why
lack
the
of
private
certainty, a
sector is
certain.
not very happy with
Okay,
India.
I take your point, Dr. Bhalla. I take your point, and I want to take that to you, Gaurav Vallabh, because this budget, many believe, needed to do more. Private investors don't say it on camera, they won't say that, but off camera, they say there is still concern. Of course, there's the global uncertainty, but there's a sense that ease of doing business on the ground, there are still far too much regulatory cholesterol. For example, tourism has been given a lot of focus in this budget. But when I speak to people in the tourism industry, they say there are still plenty of loopholes. I want to set a hotel up in India, I have to go through hundreds of compliances. So how are you going to actually turn intent into execution?
See, point by point, Rajdeep, as you had asked me why private sector investment is not picking up. Now, one of the reason why private investment is not picking up is the geopolitical environment in the economy. Second, as pointed out by Professor Bhalla, is about the certainty. So, in the last 3 years, the public capex is increasing, but in the same rate, the private capex is not increasing. I am admitting in front of you. But it is not that it is constant, it is growing. But the rate of growth, like public capex in FY15 was 2 lakh crore, in FY27 we are budgeting for 12.2 lakh crore. So there is a 6 times increase, but that kind of increase is not there in the private investment. So what we are doing, if we are maintaining fiscal deficit at 4.4% of GDP, next year we are targeting 4.3% of GDP with the stable kind of macroeconomic parameters. When the GDP growth is growing at 7.4%, the vicious cycle of the private investment is going to break, and the private investments are also going to grow in the same manner as the public capex. So I am not of that opinion that private capex is not going to grow. Coming to your point, Rajdeep, that there are certain constraints as far as the deregulation and ease of doing business is concerned, and I am admitting, that is the reason my third point, maintenance of the momentum in the reform express. So the reforms in 3Ls are very much required. Already process is there. The labor reforms already process is initiated. Now it is the state's turn is there to make the rules for the labor code. Then the second L is the land reform. Already there is a lot of thought. Already the process is initiated. And third is about the legal reforms. When I say legal reforms, it is about executing the contracts. So with these kind of reform
you're
agenda
saying
in
this
mind,
is work in
I'm
progress.
very
I
sure
take
that
your
private
point.
sector
Let me give
investment is
Abhishek
also
Manu
going to
Singhvi a final word. You see, Abhishek Manu Singhvi, one of the concerns I have, we don't have a shadow cabinet. So when the finance minister makes his speech, the opposition, instinctively says it's a terrible budget. But how would you have, what I keep asking this to opposition leaders, what would you have done different? Give me one thing that you would have done that Nirmala Sitharaman has not done today. Again, you're on mute, sir.
First of all, Rajdeep, I don't speak on the basis that I have to criticize for the sake of criticism. There are some good things. For example, Biopharma Shakti, semiconductor mission. These are good things. Rare earth corridors, we want to do some things to reduce Chinese dependency, etc., etc. But these are few and far between. You are asking me all the things I've criticized on. I would have given much more for agriculture. I would have done much more for MSMEs. I would have done for direct employment. You are talking of indirect. Even an expert like Mr. Bhalla, whom I hold in very high regard and esteem, is able to really point to the positives as first non-budgetary. I mean, poverty reduction, women's empowerment, government codes are good things, but they're not budgetary issues we are discussing today. He has to struggle to find a GST cut which is dehors the budget. And he rightly points out private sector low investment. So on the budget itself, there is very little except that there is a rosy picture for the future every time. On each item, the immediate past 1 and 2 years have shown great reductions, and the very same thing is jacked up for the future. In addition to what I have said, I think there is, and I think my friend Mr. Vallabh is perhaps adopting that, this whole thing about acronyms and jumlas. Two of his three M's I have dealt with. I've shown you the M about MSME. Corporate Mitra is hardly a very big boost to MSMEs. Manufacturing is stuck at below 13%. So what is these three M's? And L's are, the long-term legal sector reform and all. These are not budget. You have not used the budget as a tool of economic advancement, acceleration, a push. Very tepid and very,
Okay,
insignificant.
I've heard both of you. I will give Dr. Bhalla 30 seconds. I know that's a very limited. Dr. Bhalla, what is the one thing you would have liked to see that you didn't see in this budget?
Anything to increase private investment. And as far as the one thing, I would have hoped that they would say something about the Tiger Global judgment of the Supreme Court. But let me add, just since I've only taken 15 seconds, let me take 15 seconds more. All of you taking recourse to, oh my God, the world is so uncertain, and therefore we've done the best. If you look at GDP growth rates around the world in 2025, they were higher for 53% of the countries, higher in 2025 than in 2024. So we're facing the same global situation as the rest of the world. So let us not congratulate ourselves that, look, we're facing a tough environment. Oh, what can we do? What we could do is to provide incentives for private investment to go up and reduce tax terrorism in our country.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I appreciate my guests joining me at the moment. Three very different perspectives. Thank you all very much for joining me.